This is Taking Stock on Bloomberg. I'm Pim Fox. When many people think of Cambodia, they often come to mind the images of a war-torn nation. But in recent years, Asia's second smallest economy has focused on renewal and reconstruction, even in what our next guest has called a shell-shocked investment climate. Doug Clayton is the CEO of Leopard Capital, which has raised about $30 million for his Cambodia fund. It's the first private equity investment fund for Cambodia. It's good to have you with us. Good to have you back, Doug.
Thank you.
Give us a little bit of an oversight as to the sort of structure, the investment infrastructure that exists in Cambodia.
Cambodia is an early-stage economy now, but it's going to have a stock market towards the end of this year. So now is an opportunity for investors to come in and pick up private equity investments and take them into the stock market later.
What about the rules and regulations, safety of contracts, all the things that people who are investors always rely on behind the scenes?
It's a typical frontier market where the laws are being improved each year, but it's not perfect yet. The most important thing, I think, are the relationships that you form, and it's good to be on the ground and work closely with your companies that you invest in.
All right, so it is filled with risk for the uninitiated.
Certainly.
Now, what areas of the economy are you think are ripe for investment? What about the banking sector?
The banking sector is still at an early stage, but growing very rapidly. Only about 20% of Cambodians even have a bank account. But there are some banks that are doing quite well by picking up market share now.
When you look at the banking sector, what are some of the details? I mean, do they use the U.S. dollar as a currency of exchange?
Yes, that's the unusual thing with Cambodia, is that people do use the dollar. They do have a local currency, but 90% of transactions are in U.S. dollars. So when you go to an ATM machine, you tend to take out dollars there.
All right, and so does that add to stability in the country?
You don't have to worry about foreign exchange losses, so it takes one question mark out of investing in frontier markets.
Now, what about some of the specific banks? A Clayton bank, I know, is one that you've been following. What is the reason for choosing this bank as opposed to, let's say, another bank?
There's 27 banks in Cambodia. They have quite an open economy and give out licenses to people that qualify. But a Clayton bank is different from the other 26 banks because it has a nationwide branch network, about 220 branches. They bank to rural people, giving small loans at high interest rates for short-term periods, typically 3% per month. This bank had achieved about a 30% return on equity last year when other banks around the world were losing money. They had a record year. So that is one example of how Cambodia is different from most countries.
Has the Cambodian economy managed to basically sidestep the woes of the global economic recession?
Growth has slowed to probably zero growth this year, but Cambodia doesn't have the leverage of other countries. It wasn't able to borrow during the good years, so it doesn't have the debt overhang that many other countries have to work through.
Now, one of the areas I know that you've been looking particularly at is something called the Phnom Penh Special Economic Zone. How do you invest in a zone? What is this zone about?
The Cambodian government gave one company a monopoly to provide factory land to industries that want to come into Cambodia. And basically, this company provides all the infrastructure, the wastewater treatment, the power supply, and everything a factory needs to set up near Phnom Penh, which is where most of the manufacturing is done. So this company was designed by Japanese engineers. It has state-of-the-art infrastructure, and they plan to go into the stock market. So it's another possible investment target.
Now, you talk about the stock market. That's something that is going to come to fruition when? By the end of 2009?
The target is the end of this year, or possibly sometime next year. But I know they're working very hard on it, and they want to launch that.
What about liquidity from foreign investors? Will that flow into the stock market based on your experience?
At some point in the next 5 years, I would expect a wave of interest in the way that we had in Vietnam a few years back. When people discover that Cambodia's improved a lot, it's different from what they thought. I think that there will be investor interest.
Who are the largest private investors right now in Cambodia? Are they mainly Japanese companies or are they Thai companies? Who's the most invested?
It's actually mostly Korean and Chinese and Malaysian companies that have discovered Cambodia. For some reason, the Koreans are the largest investors. But there's more interest coming from around the world now.
What about instability in the region? Is that a factor when you look at what's happened in Thailand, the political process there? Has that affected people's willingness to invest in Cambodia?
Cambodia compares very well to Thailand, where in Cambodia they've had essentially the same prime minister for 2 decades, and he plans to be around for quite a while longer. So you really don't have to worry about the change of governments that countries like Thailand have had to face in recent years.
Is political stability in Cambodia also accompanying rule of law and a greater sort of participation on the part of the legal system in Cambodia?
It is improving every year, and the government is talking about passing an anti-corruption law finally. But I think having stability allows ministers to focus on specific objectives rather than just keeping their jobs.
All right. Well, I want to thank you very much. Douglas Clayton coming in. He is the CEO and the founder of Leopard Capital Fund. Appreciate you giving us some details into investing in Cambodia.